Hi everyone, I'm Amy Lee Miller. I'm here in Central Park today. Actually was here this morning too. I started my day with an 8-mile run, which I think is why my hip flexor is cramping up right now, but we're gonna go ahead with this video anyway. Today I wanna talk about overcoming anxiety. I'm actually someone that suffered from anxiety and panic attacks from a very young age throughout most of my life, but I overcame them. And so I wanna share my story in case it might help someone else out there. My grandfather, who just turned 94 last week, happy birthday, loves to share this story about when I was a very little girl. I think I was maybe 2 or 3. My mom had the extended family over, and for some reason I would not stop crying, and of course I was too little to be able to explain what it was that was bothering me. So finally my grandpa asked my mom if he could take me for a drive. So we're in the car, and again he's asking me, can you please tell Grandpa what's bothering you? And I didn't. I just kept crying. So finally he said, if Grandpa takes you to a bakery and lets you pick out anything you want, will you stop crying? So I said that I would try, I guess. And so we're in line at the bakery. I'm still crying. And again, he says to me, you can have anything you want, but you have to stop crying and tell the nice lady what you want. And I did. And then he says, the power of cookies. So years later, we realized, my grandpa and I, that probably what was going on is I was having an anxiety attack. The first anxiety attack that I remember having, I think I was about 6 years old. Again, it was at an extended family gathering. So we were at my favorite place that my mom would take us to for breakfast. I love their French toast sticks on their breakfast buffet. It was Shoney's in Virginia. So I remember we were all standing, not in line, we were standing around waiting to be seated at our table, and suddenly I just started feeling really weird, and I just wanted to be alone. I kept asking my mom if I could please go to the bathroom. She was getting frustrated with me, probably because she knew I didn't have to go to the bathroom, but I just felt like if I could be by myself and I would feel better. Finally, I went to the bathroom by myself, and I remember locking myself in the stall, and I did start to calm down and feel better. And then later, as I got older, I would have anxiety attacks in places where I felt confined, like not in a claustrophobic way, but in a sense that I wasn't able to escape, like on an airplane. Or if I felt like my boundaries were being crossed, which of course, man, it takes a lot of learning to, even into adulthood, to be able to learn how to establish healthy boundaries. So I didn't even realize, that's what it was. But now looking back, I think I would have anxiety attacks whenever I felt like my boundaries were being. So when I say anxiety attacks, I mean, there's a spectrum. So let me explain what would happen for me. So my heart would start racing, and I would get very, very nervous. And then if I wasn't able to calm down, it would progress into cold sweat, nausea. And then if I got the cold sweats, that's when I knew, like, oh no, it's over. And what would happen is I would faint. I would literally pass out. Terrifying. Then in college, this was really scary because it started happening in the classroom. Now, I've always felt very comfortable in classroom settings. So I remember it'd be happening in the large auditorium, and when the professor was lecturing, and I kept getting up to go to the bathroom because that's where I felt safe. And I knew I was annoying him. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, but I was just terrified that I was going to faint. And all of these people in class would see me. But if I got to the bathroom where I was alone and nobody was around to see this horrible thing happen, where I'm drenched in sweat and feel like I'm going to throw up and pass out, then I wouldn't. Then one day when I was in college, it got really, really bad. It got so bad that I was suddenly terrified to leave the house. So I don't know why my anxiety attacks were so out of control at this point in my life. So it was my senior year in college, so I was 21. And so, yeah, I was at home and I was terrified to leave my apartment. I was afraid that if I left, I'd have an anxiety attack and people would see. So I just wanted to stay home. So I knew I needed help, and I called a friend that I had met, and he came over, and he said to me, so what happens, what are you scared of? And I said, I'm scared I'm going to pass out, that I'm going to faint. And he said, okay, so what happens if you faint? And I said, I wake up. That was the worst that ever happened. I would wake up. And then he said, okay. So then there's nothing to be afraid of. Fear is such a powerful thing. It can overtake us and it can paralyze us. But when we realize that we're more powerful than fear, I was able to overcome my anxiety attacks by mind over matter, by understanding that it was just fear. And there was really nothing to be afraid of, because the worst thing that could happen is that I was going to wake up. That day, Fernando turned me on to one of my now favorite writers, Deepak Chopra. So at that time, I lived on the plaza in Kansas City, Missouri, so it was walkable. So we walked to Barnes and Noble, and he recommended this book for me called The Path to Love. And so I bought the book, and I read it, and I overcame my anxiety attacks. One of my favorite phrases, I guess I should say, of wisdom is, if a decision is based on fear, it's the wrong decision. Every time. I learned that I'm in control. I'm in control. We are so much stronger and more powerful than we know. I'm Amy Lee Miller, reminding you, yes, you can.